Hello my fellow YouTube, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to take you to Satria Mandala Museum in South Jakarta, Indonesia. The museum is surrounded by high buildings and near the business central area. It's easy to reach this place. The Satria Mandala Museum is one of the museums that run by the Indonesian Armed Forces History Center. This place was former President Sukarno's home with his Japanese wife Ratnasari Dewi. Then President Suharto officially opened this museum on the Armed Forces Day, October 5, 1972. From the parking area, we can see an Indonesian Air Force A4 Skyhawk jet plane. This A4 Skyhawk is one of the museum's jet plane collection. In 2017, Indonesian Air Force Chief of Staff Marshal Hadi Cahyanto handed over it to the museum. Marshal Hadi Cahyanto is now Commander-in-Chief of the Indonesian Armed Forces. From the time I arrived at the museum, I can't stop looking at this jet plane. I'm so excited to see the A4 at close. I think I'm gonna build a model kit. Technically, the A4 Skyhawk was purchased from the United States. However, the units were in Israel since they were the Israeli Air Force used aircraft. The purchase of the A4 Skyhawk was conducted confidentially because Indonesia and Israel has no diplomatic relation. Not many officers knew about the A4, even them in the Air Force at that time. They thought the aircraft was the F-5E Tiger. Under a top-secret operation called Operation Alpha, Indonesian Air Force pilots and aircraft technicians were trained in Israel. To disguise the operation, they were flown to the United States after the training. They did tours in the US for 2 weeks, spent the night in the 10 different hotels, took any kind of pictures to convince that they are really trained in the United States by the US Marine Corps. They must memorize what they have learned from the Israeli Air Force. No record about their existence in Israel. All evidence were burnt by the intel. The government would deny if the operation failed. The operation has succeeded bringing the 32 A4 units to Indonesia until they were shown on the Indonesian Armed Forces Day on the October 5, 1980. This operation was never been listed officially. The A4 Skyhawk has served the country for almost 3 decades. Now they land on a museum. Okay, now let's move to that boat. This is the replica of the Indonesian Navy fast attack boat named R.I. Macan Tutul, a West German fast attack boat with torpedo. On January 15, 1962, Commodore Yasudarso was killed and sank with his boat, R.I. Macan Tutul, in the Battle of Arafurusi against two Netherlands Navy destroyers. He made a distraction in order to save his fellow's life on the two other boats, R.I. Harimau and R.I. Macan Kumbang. The Netherlands destroyer thought the Indonesian Navy boat will launch torpedoes. The R.I. Macan Tutul was shot from the sea and from the air. In reality, the three boats were not armed with torpedoes. Their mission was for surveillance only. Unfortunately, the Netherlands Navy ship discovered them. The silent operation turns into sea battle. Let's walk to the other side. This is M3A3 Stuart light tank. The Netherlands Army had this unit from the US Army during the World War II. This is the famous Russian MiG-21, Indonesian Air Force first supersonic jet. The most feared interceptor fighter jet by the West in the 1960s. It was developed in the Soviet Union in the 1950s and has been used by more than 60 countries. The MiG-21 had capability of Mach 2 speed. However, it had a short range in the first generation. At least there were 15 versions of the MiG-21 that had been produced. Some of them were produced outside Soviet Union. That's the M8 Greyhound, a 6x6 armored vehicle produced by Ford Motor Company USA during the World War II, used by the Indonesian Special Police Force in the 1960s. This is the Indonesian Air Force Bell 204B helicopter, the civilian version of the UH-1D Iroquois, better known as the Huey. The multipurpose helicopter that supports either military or non-military operation. Began serving in the Indonesian Air Force in 1964. The Bell 204B had involved in many tasks. One of them was the search and rescue operation during the volcano eruption of Mount Galunggung in West Java, 1982. Huey helicopters have starred in many Hollywood films. Now we are going to the old plains part. This is the legendary North American B-25J, a medium bomber aircraft. It has served with the Air Force for over 20 years, from 1950 until the middle of 70s. The J-type has 8 machine guns on the nose with no glass cover. The B-25J is more like a ground attack aircraft disguised as a bomber. The Indonesian Air Force B-25J with the code M458 has been Satria Mandala Museum collection since 1976. This is Yokosuka K-5Y Imperial Japanese Navy training aircraft made in 1933. What we are seeing now here is the replica. In 2017, the original one has been moved to Dirgantara Mandala Museum, Jakarta. It was one of the Japanese abandoned aircraft after their loss from the Ally in the Pacific Theater. There were 50 planes abandoned by the Japanese in Magwo Airfield, Yogyakarta. Indonesian fighters at that time named the aircraft Curang. They shortened the Japanese word Chukan Rensuki to Curang. Chukan Rensuki means intermediate training aircraft. The first test flight was performed on October 27, 1945 for 30 minutes by Agustinus Adisucipto. Curang had his first crash on January 14, 1946. The pilot and his crew survived from the accident. Royal Air Force pilot called the aircraft the Flying Coffin. Curang had his role in the attack of the Netherlands military base in Ambarawa and Salatiga, Central Java, during the first Netherlands military aggression from July 21 to August 4, 1947. This is the replica of the Nakajima Ki-27 1938. The Ally marked this aircraft as Nate. His local name was better known as Nishikoren. It was found also with the Yokosuka K-5Y by the Indonesian fighters at some airfield in Java, 1945. After being successfully repaired, Agustinus Adisucipto performed test flight on November 7, 1945, flew around Tasikmalaya, West Java for 30 minutes. After Indonesia-Netherlands negotiation, In the Round Table Conference on August 23 to November 2, 1949, Indonesia gradually received military facilities. One of them was the North American P-51D Mustang aircraft. It was a very reliable long-range aircraft during World War II. The P-51 has capability of conducting independent strikes and performing escort duties for the bombers as well. The P-51D Mustang was the pioneer of the Indonesian Air Force aerobatic team. It also involved in many military operations, and it was declared grounded in the early 70s. This is Farragut Mark IV, an anti-submarine warfare aircraft. It was the Indonesian Navy Aviation Service aircraft purchased from the British government in 1957. Actually, this aircraft operated from the carrier ship with folded wings. However, the one here had been modified with more powerful engine and came with a fixed-wing model. Due to Indonesia-Malaysia confrontation in 1964 to 1966, the British government cut the aircraft part supply. Although diplomatic relations with the British government had back to normal after the confrontation, Gannett part supply still got no replacement. In the early 1970s, Gannett stopped serving in the Navy. Now, only 3 Gannets left. 2 of them became monuments at Navy Air Base Juanda, Surabaya, and one we see now here at Satria Mandala Museum, Jakarta. This is AT-16 Harvard, an advanced trainer aircraft. Same like P-51, the AT-16 Harvard was also the result of the Round Table Conference negotiation. Apart from being an advanced trainer aircraft, the AT-16 Harvard was also used as a connecting aircraft. Even if it is equipped with a bomb and a machine gun pod, it can be used as a ground attack aircraft. The AT-16 Harvard then retired in the 1970s and was handed over to the Satria Mandala Museum in 1976. This is Gelatic, or PZL-104 Wilga. Nurtanio built this light aircraft under license of PZL Warsaw, Poland. The PZL-104 Wilga was used by the Indonesian Air Force Agriculture Air Unit to perform airborne pest spraying. Apart from spraying pests, this unit can be used to spread fertilizers and to eradicate epidemics such as malaria. The Agriculture Air Unit, despite having lots of experience, was eventually eroded by the times and had to be liquidated. Nowadays, drone technology has more operationally effective and cheaper to perform those tasks. The PZL-104 Wilga is now used by the Indonesian Aerosport Federation. When I was a kid, I used to hear a word dragonfly plane. Apparently, it was a Piper Cub L4J Grasshopper, a basic trainer aircraft for pilot cadets in the Indonesian Air Force Aviation School in 1950s. It also had functioned as reconnaissance aircraft. The Air Force received quite a lot as part of the implementation of the Roundtable Conference Agreement signed at the end of 1949. Retired in 1971, the Piper Cub then handed over to Indonesian Aerosport Federation. This is the Indonesian Army Aviation Service helicopter, Mi-4 Hound. The Mi-4 became the standard carrier helicopter for the armed forces in 1960s to support Trikora and Dwikora campaigns. Just like the other Eastern Bloc planes and helicopters, many were retired due to the embargo on the parts after the downfall of the old order and the rise of the new order. This is Douglas DC-3, civilian version of the military aircraft carrier C-47 Skytrain, Indonesia's very first civilian aircraft after the Proclamation of Independence on August 17, 1945. Thanks to the people of Aceh for their contribution on the purchase of the aircraft. 20 kilograms of gold, which equals to 130,000 Singapore dollar, had been collected from the people of Aceh at that time. The aircraft arrived in October 1948. Name given for the aircraft is the Dakota RI-001 Sulawah. Sulawah means Mount of Gold. The Dakota RI-001 Sulawah aircraft was the forerunner of the Indonesia's first commercial airline company, Indonesian Airways. There's an interesting story about this plane. Due to Netherlands' second military aggression on December 19, 1948, the RI-001 was not possible to return to Indonesia after conducting periodic overhaul and long-range tank installation in Calcutta, India. On the initiative of the second air officer, Wiweko Suparno, and with the help of Mr. Marjuni, Indonesian representative in Burma, a commercial airline company was established on January 26, 1949, under the name Indonesian Airways, based in Rangoon, Burma. The purpose of establishing this commercial airline was to assist the struggle for the Indonesian independence against Netherlands. Unlike any other commercial airline company, the RI-001 was hired by the Burmese government for military operation against the rebel. No airlines company in Burma would take the risk since it was too dangerous. The Indonesian Airways received the payment in cash for carrying out air transport in the Burmese government's military operation. I apologize for not being able to record the entire rooms since the memory card on my cell phone was out of space. We can see here the police symbol, Air Force, Navy, and the Army. These are photos of the Vice Presidents of the Republic of Indonesia. This is the display of the August 17, 1945 proclamation text. Now let's see the dioramas. We go downstairs to the weapons room. Surprisingly, I see an Uzi submachine gun on the display. This must be used by the special forces. We got grease gun next to the Uzi. The American M16 rifle. The Russian AK-47 assault rifle. In the last part, we are going to see the armored vehicle collection.